comrades, Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions leading to a better audio experience and more money saved. So, let's get right into the iFi Zen versus the FiiO K5 Pro versus the JDS Labs Atom versus the Bravo Ocean. A lot of people have been asking me about specifically the K5 Pro and the Zen, so I figured I'd do a shootout. All these are desktop amps, all of them run around the same price. All of them do a lot of the same things. Big shout out to Intuit Reviews for the Bravo Ocean, sending me the Bravo Ocean. So I'll put a link down below for his channel as well. Definitely subscribe there. So in order from lightest to heaviest, the JDS Labs Atom comes in at 9.3 ounces. Definitely feels a little bit plasticky in your hand, but fortunately the sound more than makes up for it. 264 grams. Bravo Ocean is 11.1 ounces or 324 grams. The FiiO K5 Pro comes in at 15.4 ounces and 437 grams, and the iFi Zen is 18.1 ounces and 516 grams. Definitely the most robust out of these four. It's a hair over a pound. It just feels like really solid in your hand. Definitely feels like it could withstand some abuse like Mick Foley.
Look out! If he throws him up on the other side, there's...
Right behind it, I mean, the K5 Pro, think of it as like a lean soccer player who moves around quite swiftly with lots of finesse. It's not a cheap feeling unit, but it definitely, for its size, it feels like it should be maybe just a tad heavier. That's of course a minor nitpick. The Bravo Ocean feels really solid for its size and does not feel cheap. None of these amps feel cheap except for the Atom does kind of feel a little bit. I mean, I was very surprised when I first put it in my hand. Knobs, buttons, and connections on each. So the JDS Atom, it's good if a bit flimsy. Some of the buttons on the front, they move around in their respective slots a little bit. The volume pod does feel a bit plasticky, but yeah, the connections on the back all feel good and solid. The Bravo Ocean's front panel yields a very industrial type of look. Very good though. All the volume knob and the on-off switch feel very solid. The back panel is all good as well. The K5 Pro, like I said, feels a tad light for its size, but everything on it feels very good. The volume pod is pretty large.
Firmly grasp it in your hand.
When you turn it, obviously, it clicks on and blue light comes on. Back panel is all good. Everything feels pretty solid to the touch. The switches on the front also feel very good as well. The Zen obviously feels the best. The volume pod is a dream to turn. It's sort of like a polygonal type of shape. Buttons on the front feel very good, and the connections on the back feel all solid. So what about features? Yeah, so the JDS Atom, it has one pair of RCA analog inputs and a pair of RCA analog outputs. It also comes with a line input and a 16-volt AC power jack. So the front, you have a 1/4-inch headphone jack, so it does not support DSD. MQA support is not applicable. If you run something like a Dragonfly into the Atom, then you will get MQA support through Tidal. But other than that, I mean, it's just an amp. So power output is 125 milliwatts at 600 ohm, 502 milliwatts at 150 ohm, and a 1 watt at 32 ohms. So pretty powerful stuff.
Give your bodies to Atom, my friends.
Even a little bit more powerful than the JDS Objective 2. I'll link you guys a comparison that I did of that as well. Some common uses for the Atom: you can hook it up to studio monitors or speakers and use it as a preamp, which is really cool. Obviously, you can use it also as a dedicated amp DAC on your desktop for use with music or gaming. You can hook it up to your PS4, but obviously you'll need a separate DAC that does support that does have optical in, such as like an OL DAC. I'll place a link for that as well. And you can use it in conjunction with pretty much any DAC via its RCA inputs. And lastly, you can use it with a 3.5mm interconnect via its line-in capability too. So the Bravo Ocean performs almost exactly the same as the Atom in terms of connections, which I thought was interesting.
That's fucking interesting, man. That's fucking interesting.
It also has RCA analog inputs and a pair of outputs, as well as a line-in and a 24-volt DC power jack. Basically, everything that I said about the Atom applies to the Ocean now. The Ocean is a little bit different type of amp, but we'll get into that in a bit. So K5 Pro is definitely the most versatile out of these. It has a coaxial input and an optical input, which the other two did not have. It does have a pair of RCA analog inputs and outputs, and of course the USB Type B for use with your desktop. So a power output comes in at 1.5 watts at 32 ohms, does support DSD, and supports PCM files up to 32-bit 384K. So yeah, you can hook it up to your studio monitors or speakers and use it as a preamp like the other two. Obviously you can use it as a dedicated amp DAC on your desktop for music or gaming. You can output it to a separate amp via its RCA analog outputs. You can hook it up to your PS4 via its optical input, which I'm running with the K702 right now. You can also hook it up to anything in your home theater via its coaxial inputs. So think like your turntable, receiver, anything in your home theater that has a coaxial output on the back can run into this. So very, very versatile unit. You can also use it in conjunction with pretty much any DAC via its RCA inputs. So any DAC that has RCA outs you can use with this. For instance, I was using one of these with the iFi Zen Blue wirelessly, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, so the iFi Zen has a 4.4 millimeter balanced output, one RCA analog output, one USB Type B jack, and a 5-volt DC power jack. And on the front you've got the 1/4 inch headphone jack unbalanced and a 4.4 millimeter balanced headphone jack. So does support DSD and PCM up to 32-bit 384K. Does support MQA also, and its power output is 280 milliwatts at 32 ohm, 36 milliwatts at 300 ohm, and out of the balanced 380 milliwatts at 50 ohm and 70 milliwatts at 600 ohm. So if you think about this, HG600 requires about 20. This is 20 milliwatts from an amp. This has plenty of power. Some people will tell you otherwise, that it does not have enough power, but they're lying.
Don't believe his lies. He is the one. Kill him.
Yeah, so you can hook it up to studio monitors or speakers and use it as a preamp, obviously via its RCA analog outs, or you can run 4.4 millimeter balanced out to some speakers as well. And obviously you can use it as your dedicated amp DAC on your desktop for music listening or gaming. Even though it's a little bit more limited, it does support MQA and should be used as your desktop amp DAC primarily. This is more of an entry-level amp DAC for the beginner enthusiast who's kind of looking to get their feet wet but wants to invest in a fantastic overall product. So let's get into the sound. See, I listened to a ton of albums here, almost too many to count. I will put a link down below for my official review. You guys can check out some of the things I listened to. Really, I've been listening to all these amps for quite a while. A lot of albums back and forth, a lot of songs back and forth. It's just, I kind of just know intuitively how they sound in relation to one another. I think that's makes it a lot more simple. And if you guys have any questions specifically, definitely comment down below. But headphones, I was using the HG600, 650, 6XX, K702, and the 400 series from iFi Zen. So this spans quite a few months of listening. I'll also throw the Dragonfly Red in here as a little bit of a comparison as well. The main thing you should know about the K5 Pro versus the Zen is that the sound is not that much different. I went back and forth on a master file of Come Together by the Beatles, a song I'm very familiar with, through the K702. The K5 Pro sounded slightly warmer and maybe a bit less expansive, while the Dragonfly Red sounded a bit more open and airy than even the Zen. So I would put the Zen in the middle of the Dragonfly Red and the K5 Pro. It's not definitely not as open sounding as a Dragonfly Red, but probably not as warm as a K5 Pro. The K5 Pro is definitely the warmest out of this bunch by a long shot. I mean, it's just a more lush, kick back and relax type of vibe. It's a very marginal difference though. I mean, the Zen is pretty warm as well. But the Dragonfly Red provides the most stark contrast between these three, and I know that's pretty much the case when you're comparing the Dragonfly Red with most amps. It's going to be more open and airy, cooler sounding, a little bit wider sound stage. I read somewhere that the listening with a Dragonfly Red is like opening your window and letting a cool breeze come in. It's very, very true analogy. Yeah, so the differences between the Zen and the K5 Pro aren't that notable, but the difference between the Dragonfly Red and the Zen versus the Zen and the K5 Pro are. So if the Zen is warmer and more lush sounding, the Bravo Ocean plus Dragonfly Red is a little bit more open and crisp. Being that the Ocean is a Class A tube hybrid amp, it runs really, really hot, so definitely keep that in mind. Or you can't put your finger on it and keep your finger on there for more than a few seconds if it's been on for a while, because it just gets really, really hot. So I'd advise you to, just as a precautionary measure, you're going to want to turn it off because it does run very hot. So the sound of the Ocean, though, supposedly it's warmer, but I mean maybe slightly, but it's definitely not a night and day difference like some people would have you believe. It's still a hybrid tube. It's not a true tube amp. It does sound really, really good with 4XX, and does maybe provide a hint of more liquidy type of gooey warmth, but it's nothing to get your panties in a twist over. I really didn't run the Ocean with any other DAC. Yeah, I think it depends what you're pairing the Bravo Ocean with as far as your DAC, in terms of how it's going to sound. It just performs really well regardless, and it sounds fantastic. So lastly, the Atom definitely is the cleanest sounding out of this bunch. Makes a perfect pairing with the 6XX. I'll put links down below for those. I think out of all the amps that I've heard, the 6XX pairs the best with the Atom. It just sounds extremely neutral, but not in like a, I guess maybe in sort of a coldish way, but it's not. It's more like you're, and this is also true for the Objective 2, similar sounding to the Atom. Some people might tell you that the Atom sounds better, but I mean, it's not. I don't really want to get into that, but the Atom and the Objective 2 are both like being, sort of like being in the studio space rather than listening through the headphones. Definitely not like you're there, but the Atom is more, it's just cleaner and more crisp sounding than even any of these amps. So
Bask in Atom's glow, and you will understand.
let's say you don't really need all the features that the K5 Pro has, and you prefer more of a neutral, clinical type of sterile sound, very clean sound. The Atom is what I would go with, especially with something like a 6XX. If you prefer more of a warmer type of sound, definitely probably either the Zen or the K5 Pro, and in deciding between those two, figure out what you needed to do. So if you only really feel like you'll use it on your desktop with gaming or music, go with the Zen. If you plan to do some more console gaming and think you might hook it up to something in your home theater down the road, the K5 Pro is probably definitely the most versatile out of all these. Like if I had to choose one for everything, definitely I would go with the K5 Pro, but not everybody prefers the warmer sound of the K5 Pro. It's definitely the warmest and most laid back out of this bunch. The Bravo Ocean is also a good choice, but if you want a tube hybrid amp and you want to get your feet wet in that category, go with the Ocean. But if you have any further questions, definitely hit me up down below and I can try to help you out. So yeah, that's about it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this review shootout. Leave me some love down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. If you like what I do here and you want to support the channel, hit that Patreon link down below. And last but not least, don't forget to ask me about my grandchildren, yeah? Don't forget to twerk. Yeah. Check. Review brought to you by Stu. Here's the coda. I'm nasty on the mic. Call me warm soda. Chopped up this beat real fine like cold produce. Steady in my veggies so I can focus on my David Copperfield. Y'all hocus pocus. A little loopy when I wrote this. Esoteric dopeness. cultivating the will of a soldier, fighting through the pain like Dooku. I told ya, sold you on my style, snapping on cats like Private Pile. I get semi-wild every once in a while, 911 on the dial, alone at the top with no rival. Dark is my world without a Bible, without God's love there's no survival. So my mindset is tribal, yeah, my mindset is tribal. Yeah, my mindset is tribal.